The second series of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's likeable documentary following their purchase of a National Football League club, Welcome to Wrexham, just wrapped on Disney Plus here with this charting last season, which of course culminated in them getting promoted back to the Football League. I had a friend of mine who admonished me for spoiling that for them when they were watching, but I maintained my stance that you can't spoil the news, and especially after the first season was such a success, a lot of us just followed the team's success in real time, particularly on their epic FA Cup run, which proves one of season two's highlights here. The first series worked because it was a really simple but effective setup of two well-known and really likable faces taking a big financial risk and having to learn about and falling in love with football along the way, while also getting stuck into the nooks and crannies of the small Wrexham community that they'd invested in. What made it most fun was it kind of found itself in real time with no set format. Like one week they explained storylines by jumping through a variety of familiar TV genres, like a talk show or game show, for example. And they had to make big football decisions like sacking coaches or hiring big money signings, all while not fully sure how or why to do it. And again, all of that was true, and they just kind of documented it, and it's what made it really compelling. In season two, we kind of meet them a bit more wet behind the ears, and they have a bit more of a format developing here, particularly with Wrexham executive director Humphrey Kerr stepping into play as a narrator of sorts and explaining the stakes to us at each stage. It helps them at McElhenney himself as a passionate sports fan and clearly really understands why people love being fans. So when the show works and focuses on the on-field stuff, it really, really still works. It helps too that Wrexham as a team are fortunately constantly, as you will know if we follow them in real time, they are a team that end up being in Hollywood epic games as it is. The experimentation with the format and what this show is or should be kind of continues, and they're still finding what the show is and what makes it work. And not everything lands this time around, if I'm being honest. We obviously know that our Hollywood leads are also producing the content that they're making, but it also feels a little bit more stage managed at times here to kind of generate positive PR. Like at one stage, there's a large focus on the Wrexham's women's side this season, which is great. And I'm really happy to see women's football get that spotlight. But the tone at times is a little fawning and patronizing in that it's like, look at the women, aren't they brilliant? Look at that, they're brilliant. The women, oh, they're much better than the men. I tell you, you wouldn't have a man doing that well on all the stuff they have to do. You know, it was just like, and it's not how they speak about the men's team. Like the men are like, oh, for fuck's sake, lads, will you just fucking score? You're giving me heart attacks here. Whereas everything, like, if you just see, like, they'll show a clip of a woman kicking a ball and they're like, amazing, another amazing job. And it's like, she just did her job. Like, but again, like it is good to see women's football and particularly non-league, women's football get that kind of spotlight that the likes of Ryan Reynolds can bring. So I don't hate it. It is a net profit, but it's something to kind of watch for. There's other episodes that have similar vibes throughout this. In one episode, we meet autistic fan Millie, who, to be honest, is an absolute joy to behold and is constantly kind of called back to in the crowd to help us celebrate this season's high. So again, that's like, that's a net positive. But there was another one that totally misfired for me when they dedicated an episode to talking about how Ollie Palmer's father was gay, which in a vacuum, I suppose he does have an interesting story to tell, and it is well told. Like it's a fine episode of television, but when you kind of try and fit it into the grand scheme, you're just like, it felt really out of place, to be honest, with the bigger picture. And like they were just kind of throwing in any progressive storylines they could find to make themselves seem like, to make like McElhenney and Reynolds seem like kind of warm, woke dads. And again, like it is a risk because viewers don't like to feel like they're being force-fed positive PR. Editing and being liberal with the truth to create a compelling narrative, that's just standard documentary making, and we are fine with that. That's fine. But if it's just like editing everything to go, look at how great and understanding we are, and look at the work we're doing for our community. Yeah, like that's nice, and please do that work. We're happy for you to do it, but you don't need to have the cameras there for every bit of it. You don't need to be like, look, I am very understanding, and I get all of the issues. It's a bit grating, if I'm honest. I'd much rather the football related stuff with the edges taken off. Like at one stage, you have like Rob and Ryan being explained to them that they're going to lose potentially 28 million if they don't get promoted, and freaking out. And if you ask the PR person, is it a good look to have these Hollywood millionaires, like the kind of massive success stories, freaking out about the possibility of losing millions of pounds? You'd say no, absolutely don't do that. That's a bad idea. But they're really likable, they're really cheeky, and they can kind of get away with it, and it does ground them and make them interesting while also kind of highlighting and adding to the stakes as time goes on. Or I love when they're just clueless and reckless as well. Like they talk about the England's kind of stupid Saturday 3 p.m. no televised game law. And then they have Rob in the local pub and he's like, oh, I'm an owner, so I get a special stream. Do you want to just stick it on the telly? And someone has to call him saying, you cannot do that. That is not legal by any means. And he genuinely has no clue. And it's really, really fun. Basically, whenever the show gets out of its own way and stops trying to control and tell the stories and kind of shape the narrative itself and just lets the narrative play out, because like I said, Wrexham are a really interesting football team as it is. You don't need to create a fake narrative for it. When it becomes kind of a fish out of water observation on the core things that make us love football, that's when it works. And they did that in season 1 because they were truly out of their element, but it needs to be something they remember, that that's why the show works. That's why we're tuning in. There is an element and there is a part to play with kind of the human component behind it, but it has to feed into the bigger picture. And for the most part, to be fair, in the 15 episodes, they do get out of their own way and focus on that tried and true formula, letting the drama play out on the pitch, then cutting back to the owners and whichever Hollywood A-listers they have in the corporate box, just freaking out over it all. The finale, for example, is glorious and does this perfectly, telling the final chapter we're all here to see, while occasionally zooming out to give us some good backstory on the key characters involved before their big moments and how they contribute. And I wondered how they were going to pull this off, because it's such a big moment and kind of everything the show is building towards, and how could they like do the promotion justice. But Rob McElhenney obviously dug into his Philadelphia sports leanings to pull a classic needle drop out of the bag to fit perfectly. It was truly goosebump inducing stuff. As the third season's just been announced, Welcome to Wrexham still remains a triumph and a really fun treat of television, as does just watching them in real time whenever we can. But no matter how much Wrexham advance in the world of football, I hope they remember to keep this show grounded at its most basic. Focus on the football pitch and the huge advantage of having Hollywood's most likable star standing there in the crowd for it. That is literally all we need. Don't fuck it up. Don't try and make it too, progressive or woke, or kind of, here's a message and here's how we're good for the community and here's how the charity work we do. All we need is just the lads watching the football. That's it. That's all we're here for. But for season 2, yo Adrian, they did it.